Hello everybody and welcome back to Lozy PT and welcome back to something slightly different. War on Pacific and a play-by-email game versus Invictus. We are playing as the Japanese, he is the Allies. Let's get straight into it. So the way these videos will work is we will record the gameplay and then I will do a short voiceover. So this is turn 5 and straight away you can see that my submarines kind of hanging around Pearl Harbor, seeing what they can do, are being pinged by Invictus's destroyers. He does have quite a few. We did actually manage to sink one very early on. So yeah, he's been trying to ping our subs. Most of them have been doing okay, but there is quite a lot of destroyers out there. Makes sense, Pearl Harbor is a pretty key place. He doesn't want any big ships or something like that coming back that could be hit and heavily damaged by a sub. So it makes sense. So yes, as I mentioned, this is kind of day 5, I believe, and things are going relatively okay for the Japanese. We are currently landing at North Borneo in Sarawak in Miri, which is quite a large oil refinery and oil production. So that'll be good for us to make sure we've got plenty of fuel, which is what we need to do, kind of taking this southern resource area. As well as that, we have also managed to get some landings in the Philippines and kind of started our invasion there. Again, more subs being kind of pinged and found by American destroyers. Nothing too exciting just yet. Now this one is different. This is the other way around. Just off Indochina and just off Saigon, we see that there are some Allied subs, and they're being picked up by our patrol boats. Now, something that we can see here is that there is a rather large green, there is a green task force kind of in the middle of the Philippine Sea. Well, it's actually not the Philippine Sea. To the east of the west of the Philippines, I'll get it right eventually. And when I was playing this, I was a little bit curious and actually a little bit worried about what that was. And I was kind of getting ready and prepared to send some heavy cruisers, maybe with some destroyers, etc., just to go and see what the Allies had there and deal with it. Because the Allies do have the USS Houston, which is a heavy cruiser based in the Philippines at the start of the game. And most people do try to get that out, but I was like, is Invictus trying something? Is he planning to kind of raid as many of my transport ships that will be moving stuff around between my bases in Formosa and on Samara? And is he going to be trying to harass those? Luckily, it didn't seem that that was happening, as we will see later on. Now, just a couple of bombing missions. I had a few Betty bombers and Nels planned for night raids to try and weaken Clark Field. But as we will see soon, and last turn as well, we have been kind of thinning out the air resistance over Clark Field through the use of zeros. Now this is our invasion of Guam, one of the kind of forward bases of the Americans, one that falls relatively quickly to the Japanese, but obviously you've got to make sure that it is taken, because if not, well, then you're going to be in a weird situation for the rest of the game. Troops being lost, 17 troops being accidentally lost. I always get confused by this. There's not that many troops that are unloading on Guam. How are there so many that are being lost? Falling overboard or just hiding away in their bunks? So a bit of a strange one. So we're kind of just passing through this night combat, as it's not particularly intriguing, and there is the end of the night, and we come into the morning, which hopefully will have a lot more doing. So Coast Watchers are doing their thing when they kind of say what they can find, and our invasion of Guam carries on. A few patrol boats and a few other ships kind of bombarding. One thing I don't like about Miri is it seems to be the transports doing the bombarding, which they shouldn't do. And this is kind of annoying. A American submarine, dubbed the Dent Makers in our AI streamed game, seemingly doing some damage and sinking one of my light cargo ships. It's not the end of the world. You know, a light cargo ship isn't necessarily something that we're too worried about. We do get more, but still, losing any sort of transport, particularly as the Japanese, hurts because we've got to build that. And yeah, this is happening again. Although, when I realised this, I thought, oh god, they're hitting us. No, that was us hitting them. This is some some American submarines, apologies, trying to harass our troops as they are landing on the Philippines, but seemingly we're doing okay with dealing with them. A few more kind of scout missions all over the place. You see these blue messages popping up, which is kind of reports that you don't really want to believe because they're not great, and some of them get really weird. I had one a few turns ago that said there was 10 Allied ships in the Bay of Tokyo. There wasn't. So yeah, you got to kind of take what you see with a pinch of salt. So, South China Sea, there is that green task force again, the Allied task force. Now, as our Nels come in, we realise something. These are transport ships. And I had these planes, some Nels, and you'll see in a minute some Betty bombers, that were on naval attack with torpedoes, trying to cover the Straits of Malacca. A couple of turns ago, we realised that the Allies, I keep saying the Japanese, but the Allies were moving a lot of ships up towards India and Sri Lanka. So we got these Betty bombers and Nels that are based in southern Vietnam to try and harass them. I hadn't turned them off just in case there was more ships there, and they seem to have attacked this transport group, which I'm happy for, to be fair. I'm happy to let them do this. It's a bit of extra live training for them. The first wave of Nels and Betty bombers did really well with their torpedoes. However, these ones are coming in now with bombs, and they're not doing as successful. But again, it's practice, it's training. You know, we want our pilots to be as good as possible. A wing of Claudes from the Ryu is doing a bit of a sweep, and we've got some Sallies bombing northern Malaya. Now, this is something that I want to keep up. I want to try and bomb the Allies and harass them as they go. Probably as they move towards Singapore is the kind of main idea, but we do have to be careful because our industry and our production isn't quite there for all of our aircraft. So losing aircraft for us early on is a bit of a nightmare. So it's something we don't want to do. Using Lilies to do the same, they get a little bit of casualties there, which is good. But yes, Lilies are kind of, you know, attack aircraft, whereas the Sallies are kind of, you know, twin-engined level bombers. So we move into the afternoon and yeah, see how things go. Again, scouting missions, a lot of blue still popping up, and now we're seeing that there is 2 of those task forces in the South China Sea. The likelihood is that it will be ships that have been damaged and can't move or are much slower at moving, and the ones that are moving fast. Now, this is what we have been trying to do consistently, which is sweep over Clark Field. The problem is this time is instead of a large group of zeros, it's only a few, and luckily for us, the American response is rather limited. There is a lot of aircraft coming at us, but they're coming bits and, you know, waves, which does allow us to kind of carry on. And just having a look here, we managed to shoot down 2 planes and no losses, despite the fact only 3 zeros flew up. It was a P-26 and a P-35, so nothing too exciting, but still, you know, not taking losses is good. A quick little dive bomb on Hong Kong, not really doing much damage. One Sonia being damaged on our side, not great, but hey ho, that's what you got to do. And we are just about to move some infantry into Hong Kong, so the assault on Hong Kong can begin. Bio raids throughout China, this is something that will be carrying on kind of consistently, and most of the time I will just kind of skip over it when we are looking at it, because it's not the most exciting thing in the world, unless something crazy happens. So this is the end of the day, so it's doing all its usual things. Guam is offloading, which is fine. Miri is offloading as well. So now we will move into ground combat and see what is going on in the ground combat. So this is a bombardment attack from us because we didn't know what was there. The shock attack on Miri captures it, which is kind of useful. The Allies are, or the Chinese are moving into Ichang, where we did have a garrison, but we have retreated it out of there. The reason being is the Chinese have a lot of troops nearby Ichang, and it's one of those things that I'm not necessarily super worried about keeping. I would rather retreat, get behind another river, and build up fortifications and let the Chinese kind of just run themselves into us and take loads of casualties that way. So, end of the day, the turns are doing their thing, and we will get into what we want to do. So, first things first, having a look at our industry. So we were having a look at how many Sallys we're producing, and scrolling, and I can see that we're not making too many. We're making a decent amount, but not loads. And yeah, good idea to maybe up them and give them some more production. That way, it just means that we are producing almost a Sally a day, and then in replace of that, realizing that we probably want to expand their engine factories as well, just to make sure that we don't run short on engines once we build those new factories. The thing with the Japanese industry, we don't want to expand it too much at the beginning. We do have a large stockpile of things, but what we need to be doing is we need to be making sure that we are getting the resources and the fuel from Dutch East Indies and China to make sure that we can make supply, make heavy industry, and then up our industry completely. So this little combat over here, where in China we were wondering what the Allies had there. They didn't have a lot, so we moved from bombardment attack to deliberate attack to try and get rid of them. And in Hong Kong, because we have some heavy artillery, it's time to do some bombardment. So we got some 15cm guns here in the third independent heavy artillery. We have a 28mm howitzer with the first heavy artillery, and there is another one here that has 24cm howitzers. So 240mm, 280mm, and 150mm. 150mm, not super heavy. The 280 and the 240, yes. So we'll get them to bombard, see what damage they can do tomorrow. And it'll also give us a good understanding of what exactly the Allies have there, how they're doing, and stuff like that. Now, last turn, before this was recorded, we moved some Zeros to the northern Philippines to try and give them a little bit more cover and allow them to fly a bit closer. So we're just kind of putting units together now and kind of boosting them up. I was about to set these Zeros to sweep, giving them a bit of a rest so we don't use all of them, make them go a little bit lower. And then I kind of realised, wait a minute, that's not what they're here for. They are meant to be here to escort the bombers. And yeah, so we decide to, again, do some moving, shift the groups around so they're all together. And then I'm kind of like, oh, right, yeah, so if I use the Philippine ones, they should be doing the sweeps because they're closer, we can tell them not to use their drop tanks, etc. And I'll use the ones in Formosa to do escorts because they'll be flying with the bombers from Formosa. So we switch these guys to escorts. And what we are going to do, because we know that there is a large amount of Zeros to cover them, why not turn the bombers to day? We did have them as night because, trying to intercept bombers at night this early in the war is not particularly useful or particularly successful. So it does give us a kind of more, a better chance of not losing aircraft. The problem is for us is, in that same vein, the aircraft sometimes don't find the airfield, or only a few of them do, and therefore the attack is much weaker. Guam, we just set our troops to deliberately attack, and we noticed that there's a couple of task forces currently hanging around in the south of the Philippines. So the EU with their Claudes and Kates, it would be a good idea to see if we can intercept these at all. The Claudes were on airfield attack, so we've stuck them onto escort, although I forgot to change their altitude, so that might be fun. And yeah, we're going to move the Ryukyu and her heavy cruisers into the Celebes Sea. Now, I was a bit wondering, I was like, oh, is that just the Ryukyu and some destroyers? But no, there is 3 heavy cruisers. There is the Miku and a couple of others that I can't remember as I'm clicking through. So we have got 3 heavy cruisers there, so even if that is the Houston, which I would imagine it's not at this point, but you never know, we have 3 heavy cruisers to try and outmatch their 1 heavy cruiser. So, you know, if it comes to a slugfest, we've at least got something there. Kind of just looking around, most things are kind of already planned and are kind of going ahead, so, you know, nothing too worrying. But then we see this. Again, another task force in a rather strange place. Now, this is south of Wake Island, which we took very quickly. I think, in fact, probably quicker than I was expecting, and maybe quicker than what Invictus was expecting. We've also noticed that there are our replenishment ships far away from where they need to be. So, that was also a bad response that I put there. But the replenishment ships for the Kido Butai is going to join up with them. And then there's a couple of destroyers here that are just leaving an oiler in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So we will send them to go and merge, and you know, therefore it's got a little bit of protection because we don't want Japanese American subs to hit them. Just having a look around, seeing what we're kind of doing with stuff. We have got a couple of invasions ready to go into the Bismarck Archipelago and the Shortlands, but we'll wait until those other stuff are there from coming from Bangladesh. Bad pronunciation, down to truck. And yeah, I'm going to expand the port here as well. The airfield is almost expanded, which will stop after next turn, so we're not wasting our supplies. And just checking what troops we've got moving into Malaya. The Imperial Guards Division is on the way, as well as a few others, and just keeping an eye on what the Allies are doing. They seem to be moving some troops away up towards Rangoon and Burma. Makes sense. And I've decided that we will join the 143rd Infantry Regiment together. They can try and all go and attack that little allied force that is, you know, in the very southern tip of Burma, the weird southern tip of Burma. Other than that, we see that we've got some ships that have no cover, so we are going to send some out from Saigon. And it takes me about 3 minutes to try and find where the escort mission is. Finally, I realised that it is at the bottom overall. We have a look, we've got some light cruisers, we've got some escorts, we've got some torpedo boats, and I'm thinking, yeah, the escort will do, and then I go, oh, double check the torpedo boat, okay, no anti-submarine, that's not needed. And I'm kind of like, you know what, the escort will be fine by itself. So, set it. Meet task force. It's going to go meet those 2 transport ships because these are AK troop, which gives us a lot more troop transport. And then I realised that this has no anti-submarine either. Good job. Fuck it, we'll just see how it goes. We know there's subs there, but we should have patrol boats, and we'll probably send out next turn some sub chasers if we have any more. So again, just kind of keeping an eye on various things, and these are transport ships that will be moving an Air Force and AA and construction regiment over to Miri. So this will allow us to get some basic air defences as well as build the port up. As I say, Miri has a good oil refinery. It's not the best on Borneo, that would be below in Baklapan and Tarakan, etc. But it is still a decent one, so we would want to get that port built up so that we can get tankers in and transport the fuel, etc. over. So just a few more things, checking our paratroopers that we used to drop slightly ahead of our troops, not too far ahead. I learned that mistake from when I was playing against OCB, but drop them slightly ahead of our main force, just intending to, you know, take as many bases as we can. And maybe, you know, try and put some pressure on Invictus, make him worry a little bit. You know, things are happening faster than he might expect. But it's not really that much faster, so it's not too much of a worry. Now, I'm just keeping an eye on China, because it does look like the Chinese are making some quite aggressive offensives. I'm noticing that there is pushes towards Xinjiang, there's pushes towards troops in between Xinjiang and our main force. We are doing something similar in the north. If you can just see up there, we're doing a lot of offensive in the north, because I think that's going to be our plan. Push through the north and try and push towards Chongqing. Get there as quickly as possible. If we can hold in the rest of China, then things will be fine, because what that will allow us to do is the Chinese will not be getting any more reinforcements, and we can slowly just whittle them down and take over China. If we are successful in China, which is going to take a lot of time, but if we are successful in China, the great thing that does is it does then free up so many troops. Although, speaking of freeing up a lot of troops, China does require a lot of garrisons, and I'm looking around at certain bases, seeing if there's any troops we can move and what we need. And for example, in this base we have a full division, which would be really useful on the front lines, but they need 400 garrisons. So this is based on your assault value of the unit. And as you can imagine, a division has really high assault value, whereas other units do not. So that division has to stay there, rather frustratingly. So we're coming to the end of stuff now. Again, this is just me going over and checking all my units in the north that are on the move, and just making sure we don't overextend, but all should be good. So we come to do the save. So thank you very much, guys, for watching this video. Please let me know if you enjoy it. I will be trying to upload these as frequently as possible, so it might end up that we have a couple of videos a night now. But yes, if you enjoy, do hit that like button and subscribe, and also come and join us on Discord. The link will be down below. But until next time, have a wonderful evening. Bye.